I just know you're going to love the guests that we have on in this episode, so don't go away. Welcome to another episode of The Interview. I am Dr. Rick Wadge, and I am here with a special friend and guest, Dr. Brian Thomas from the Institute of Creation Research.
Greetings.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
I hear that you are coming through Texas and you've been riding a mountain bike. What is up with that?
Well, I took time off. Well, we had the opening of the Discovery Center in Dallas. And,
Big deal.
It's a big deal, you know.
Yeah,
and,
we get your latest promo, and it's exciting. It's one of a kind, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And folks who have attended almost without fail say the same thing. This is way better than I ever expected. Mm-hmm. So that's been nice to have that. And so I took vacation after we were open.
Needed vacation. Yeah.
Took vacation after we'd been open for about 6 weeks, and a friend of mine and I just came back from Colorado, so I've got my woolly beard, and I need to go trim it up and look like a human again here in a little bit.
You look like a human, not like a dinosaur, which is one of your specialty areas.
That's my specialty, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, with the opening of the Discovery Center, has it cost a lot of extra time for the staff? How has that impacted you guys internally?
It has cost time. Well, you can put it that way, cost time, and I guess it's true, but it's more like divert time.
Okay.
Because I think it's universally we have a 45 member staff, and within our group, we're all passionate about it.
Yes.
And I think it's good to have all 45 people heading in roughly the same direction. Some of us are cats, and it's kind of like hard to herd,
or chickens.
Chickens, yeah.
It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But the work was divvied up, and so most of the production of course, all of the exterior was done by Beck Architects, and then the interior has been divvied out to external vendors and experts. Because we want the best. We didn't want to just have mom and pop trying to rig something, in this. We wanted the latest technology. I mean, we have talking portraits. We have
amazing.
Yeah, we have animatronic animals, and we have various theaters. We have a planetarium. It's really spectacular.
Things that are flying overhead, and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember in our interview, probably last year or early part of this year or whatever, we were talking about that. It sounds amazing.
It's fun. It's a destination now. And
where's it located?
We're at the corner of Royal and Luna, Royal Lane and Luna Road in Dallas. It is the extreme-most northwest corner of the city of Dallas. So that's pretty close to 35 and 635. Near enough to the airport, the DFW airport, to be within easy reach of folks who are flying in and flying out.
Okay.
So that's where we are, Royal Luna.
The Discovery Center, I know you've had a huge part of this. So what are the areas that you have specifically contributed? What have you been a part of that's been your heart?
I was tapped to monitor and contribute content to two basic areas, one of which is the Dragon Encounters wall. The Dragon Encounters.
What is that?
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything?
Dragon Encounter.
So anything dinosaur-y, they kind of said, hey, Brian, because they don't call me Dr. Thomas yet. Come on, folks.
Now let's divert for a moment. Okay, so I don't know where I read this, whether it was social media or what, but then I see that you received your doctorate, so
yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Is it?
I think it's a big deal, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you do, but some others don't.
Okay.
I'm happy to be called Brian, but in fact, I came back from graduation. I graduated from the University of Liverpool this last summer, and came back from graduation. And some of my colleagues at the Institute for Creation Research are saying, "What do we call you now?" It's like, you've been calling me Brian. How about call me Brian? So that's been fine. But I actually, for my research, I worked on original tissue still in dinosaur bones. But that's the next question you're going to ask me. The first question you asked me was about this dragon
Yes,
encounters.
dragon. Yeah.
And really what we have on display, and it's a big 30-foot wall with original photos of artifacts, paintings, tapestries from different continents. So a lot of it's European, but we also have some that's from the Americas, from the Orient. And all of them look either like some kind of monster, some kind of dinosaur-y like general, big scary reptilian, or it looks like a specific extinct reptile that we know only from fossils other than this artwork. And those are the intriguing ones, because the anatomy that these ancient artists depicted, painted, or what have you, it exactly matches what we know from fossils. And so what that tells us is that we've got dinosaurs, or extinct reptiles other than dinosaurs, living right up into into the our ancestors encountered them. How else could they get the anatomy exactly correct? Unless they got into a time machine, came forward into the 1990s after half of these things were explored and discovered and described, and then go back in time and depict it based on.
No, I'm guessing that idea there probably wasn't a part of your thesis
No,
dissertation.
no. But I mean, we've got to explain these things. So we just let the evidence show itself, and we let folks look at it and go, well, then you have to puzzle it out for yourself. That looks exactly like Nothosaurus. Okay, it's an extinct Triassic reptile. And it's on display in Barcelona. It's been there for hundreds of years. It's a medieval altarpiece.
Stories come down to us
Stories. Oh, yeah.
firsthand.
Well, secondhand,
Okay.
but still.
Yeah.
So there's written records, and then there's the artistic records, which
Right.
are just impressive. And so that really could be a mind-blowing experience for a lot of folks, because what have you heard when you were a kid, like me, about
course.
dinosaurs? They were destroyed millions of years ago,
Sure.
millions of years before mankind
course.
ever evolved.
Right.
And then so when you see these dragon encounters, and you notice that the dragons look specifically like, there's one, and I went to England to see it. It's a depiction of it's a brass carving, and it's about this big, about 2 inches big, but it's detailed. It's got the long neck, long tail, legs that go straight down. It's a sauropod, and at the end of the tail, the tip of the tail, it's got 4 little spikes. Well, it wasn't until the 1990s when researchers discovered Shunosaurus, which is a sauropod with 4 tail spikes in the fossil.
When did this date? What is the date?
1400.
1400s.
Yeah, Bishop Bell's brass behemoth, carved in brass. It's on Bishop Bell's tomb. It's a beautiful tomb, right there in the middle of the church aisle. For some reason, that's how they buried their dead back then. But how do you explain that? And so we let visitors see the evidence for themselves,
And
and
I
they
don't
get to
know
decide.
about you, but I was taught that dragons, those are myths. It's folklore, but it's all myth.
Well, interestingly, most of the dragon artwork, even medieval, the dragons don't match anything that we know from fossils, and it is kind of it looks like a stylized, it's like we're
Sure.
trying to show a serpent, and or a dragon, and the word dragon is in the King James Bible like 17 times. So
Right.
the translators originally, or early on anyway, used that word as a real word, and it has become, since 1611, it has become mythological.
Right.
It's been mythologized, I guess. But we say, well, if it's myth, then how do you have dragons in the Bible? And how do you have dragons in our history, our cultural history? And then how do you have these descriptions written, like you said, and depictions that look exactly like extinct reptiles that we know
Right.
from fossils.
And connected to, as I've been around different parts of the world looking at pyramid style buildings, there's always serpents and things connected to places of worship or to the dead, or in Egypt, it's the serpent inside that leads you to the tombs. So, this takes us all the way back to Genesis, and then the folklore of these apparent experiences people have had with the real living type creatures.
They were, I mean, if they weren't living, if they weren't real, then why did they describe them as though they were real? That's my question.
Yes.
And not just describe them, orally and passed on, and then the fish story grew. It's not that. It was passed on, written and carved and painted.
How far back? In the caves?
Yeah.
Early man caves?
There's some in there in the caves. I know of one in European caves, and I found one in American cave. I didn't find it. I photographed it and explored it, but yeah, I trekked out through the American West. It was a 24-mile hike to get there and back. I ran out of water and almost died, but
it was worth it.
it was worth it. But I got the pictures, and I mean, one of these cave paintings that was in the display, the area that I photographed, looked, spit an image of a kangaroo. What's a kangaroo doing in New Mexico? I don't know. But when we ask folks, how did kangaroos get to Australia? Well, evolutionists say the kangaroos evolved there. Like the kangaroo ancestor started off in Australia, then it evolved into the kangaroos, and they've always been on this isolated island. But that doesn't comport with what the Bible teaches, because the Bible teaches that all the animals got off the ark. So kangaroos were once in the Middle East.
Right.
And so then kangaroos and all the other basic creature types had to migrate from the Middle East, where the ark landed, to the rest of the world, happening during the Ice Age when sea level was lower. I'm going to come back around to dinosaurs, so I'm not hopping over to kangaroos wantonly. Oh, come on, give me some. So
You had that ready in your pouch. They were ready to go.
nice.
Okay.
Nice. And so I wrote this interesting article, because that's what I do for the Institute. News articles and Acts and Facts, our free monthly magazine. We want to encourage believers. We want to encourage believers that they can trust the Bible, and that the history that's in the Bible is just as trustworthy as the spiritual teachings. In fact, the history undergirds and supplies the background for and the meat behind the spiritual teaching. So we need to know that we're a sinner.
Yes.
We need to know that there's a Savior for that.
Right.
But that information comes from the Bible. And if we say, well, dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, that's not in the Bible, then we approach the Bible with a bias against it.
Right.
And what we do at the Institute is we say, there's evidence out there that story is the culturally popular story about dinosaurs and kangaroos evolving in Australia. There's evidence out there that that's not right. And to that point, a secular researcher found a marsupial cave painting in India. And now he's saying, well, maybe the Aborigines painted this in India because they traveled to Australia, saw the kangaroos, and then traveled back to India and painted it. That's the kind of story they have to come up with. But in the biblical perspective, kangaroos may still have been in India before they were made extinct there, or what we call extirpated from that region. Just like dinosaurs may have been in the Middle East, may have been in Europe and in the Americas before they were
Now, how can people
extirpated.
get a hold of the magazine Acts and Facts? Where can they go?
ICR.org.
Okay.
ICR.org. Click subscriptions, and you could subscribe to Acts and Facts. And it just has articles that tell our acts, like what we're doing, what we're up to. We're building a discovery center, and facts. And so these facts are kind of like scientific discoveries and insights that support Scripture. And so it's a monthly building tool. And so you want to build your worldview, read this act.
Okay.
And so it's a physical magazine, which we prefer people sign up for, because what we found in our market research is that for each physical magazine, the primary owner gets to read it, but then they pass it off to someone else. And so someone else reads it. But you can also get it sent digitally, totally free. And so we'll just
Nice.
email you the magazine. We also have a daily devotional. And our founder, Dr. Henry Morris, who began the Institute in 1970,
Santee, California?
California, right?
Yeah, I remember.
You remember those old days?
I do.
And we've been in
I've
Dallas
been
now.
following you guys ever since I came to know the Lord.
Wow.
Well, because it was the best group of experts studying these topics. Creation, dinosaurs, it's amazing. Always has been.
Right.
Always will be, I'm sure.
Well, however the Lord wants to arrange the future, I don't know. But I'm just happy to be a part of what He's doing now. And you're right. We've got experts in every field. I mean, well, not every field. We want a paleontologist and a cosmologist. But
That's somebody who does like faces, cosmologist.
no, that's
Okay, so-
cosmetology, silly.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I had a second question that I came up with all by myself.
Okay.
And that was about tissue and dinosaurs. Well, I might have been prompted earlier, but
Okay, yeah. So then we finish the Dragon Encounters wall, and then you go around you turn the corner, and there's a woolly mammoth to greet you, and an Ice Age theater where we actually have the AC cranked down, so it feels a little colder in the Ice Age cave theater, but that's where we see the evidence that the Bible actually best explains the Ice Age. And that's a big puzzle piece for a lot of folks. And then the next area is Tower of Babel. And right behind Tower of Babel in the Discovery Center is a current research area. And so we've got Dr. Tompkins, he's our geneticist. He has a DNA zone. You get to see the design and the language that's built into DNA. And then there's then there's my wall. And so my wall is back there, and so there's a scrolling video, and then there's a giant touch table where we have different activities that you can do to learn. Basically, it's a discovery center. So we're discovering soft tissues still inside, not just dinosaur, but all kinds of fossil bones. And I selected, I think 7 to 10 examples from the literature, and so you can click the icon and drag it over to the analyzer, the digital analyzer, and then these data pop up and pictures pop up. So this tissue, and it looks like meat before you put it on the grill. I mean, it's that kind of stuff, and it's inside bone. It's supposed to be millions of years old, but if that's true, then how does it look like this? I mean, how do you have stretchy, squishy, elastic blood vessels with blood cells in them? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's common. It's actually so I found for my PhD research, I found over 100 examples in the literature already published of biomolecules, biochemicals, proteins, and such that are in these fossils. And then, of course, you got to do original research. So a little bit of my original research is on that wall too, where folks can see that ICR does research, the Institute for Creation
yes.
Research. We have some answers, but we're not the Institute for Creation Answers. We do have some answers, but we're constantly researching. We love to research. We love to discover more and more ways that the world matches the Word. And it's endless. It is endless.
What have you learned through your research on the soft tissue? What struck you? What is striking you?
The ubiquity of it. Yeah. So what struck me is both in the literature survey and in my examinations where I've obtained through partnerships or I've gone and dug it myself, bones. I got all these bones, like a big bone collection. And I've got, through literature and personal investigation, looking at the bones myself, I pioneered a new technique and applied it to bones.
Really? A new technique?
It's new to bones. It's a biomedical technique. I can actually take a picture of the collagen protein that's in it. So that was the novel aspect of my research. But anyway, combining all that together, I started to compile all this, and what was striking to me, I mean, Cambrian, you've heard the rock layer names?
Mm-hmm.
Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Pennsylvanian, Permian, Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous.
I always get mixed up too, so.
What I'm saying is there's only 2 of these in which we have not yet found soft tissue. Cambrian is supposed to be 21 million years old, like 500 million years old, and it's got soft tissue, squishy tissue in it. And we think it's a flood. We think it's Noah's flood that deposited these layers all in 1 year, not over the span of 500 million years. And the soft tissue that's still in these fossils, from the bottom layers to the top layers and all in between, that is consistent with the biblical notion that these layers were deposited by Noah's flood, which is about 4,500 years ago, not millions or billions of years ago. So we think that our secular colleagues' age assessment is wrong, and they're overlooking a lot of evidence in order to, they're pigeonholing everything into the force-fitting all that they see into the millions of years paradigm. And I'm telling you, it's a paradigm. It's a philosophy. It's a chart in a book. The actual rocks, the actual fossils don't fit it very well. And you have to tell strange stories in order to get it to fit. For example, that soft tissue's been sitting there for 70 million years, and it has not yet fallen apart. Bacteria haven't gotten to it. And so let's imagine that, for 70 million years, no bacteria has gotten to it. And it's still colored red because it's got hemoglobin in it, and they're telling us this.
Okay, so that leads me to a question. Is there a difference between, I'm just making this up, a dinosaur who dies before the flood and a dinosaur who's trapped within the layers because of the flood?
I think absolutely, because a dinosaur that dies before the flood would be like a Komodo dragon that dies today, or a cow that dies in a field today. What happens to the dead cow? It decays, gone. I've got a buddy who has property, and he runs cows on the property. I did some work for him, and he said, "Oh, I've got to go check on that cow carcass. My cow died, and I got to make sure that I pull it away." So he had wrapped a rope around the carcass, hitched that to his trailer, dragged it out to a field so it wouldn't smell so bad. And I said, "I want to see that carcass." He drove me out to this 1 week old carcass, and it was,
wow.
I mean, this is a 700-pound animal, and it's just skin and bones in a week.
In a week.
And this is, it's not a tropical forest. It's just North Texas.
Is that similar to what you're seeing in the ground?
Well, what we see in the ground. So this cow, coyotes had come, dragged the head over here. The organs are eaten up, scavengers, and the carcass rots and decays, and its skin gets stretched and spread to the 4 corners, and so there's just fragments and bits left. But what we see in the fossils is the whole body, the whole animal, in many cases, was just completely overwhelmed and overcome by water. And with the dinosaurs, the sauropod, that's the biggest creature God ever made. It's actually, I think, described in Job that way also. Job chapter 40, "Behold now behemoth, which I made along with you. He moves his tail like a cedar. He's the chief of the ways of God." Biggest creature. But that creature in the pre-flood world was still alive, inundated, completely covered with sand and mud, and 100-foot long land creature, completely covered. And it's all still there. So its carcass got locked inside rock. The mud quickly dried. It doesn't take long for mud to turn into rock. You
And
just need the right
before
conditions.
something could eat it.
Yeah, it didn't get scavenged.
Right.
It did not get
Right.
scavenged. And you look at these fossils and look for evidence of scavenging. And there is a little bit of evidence of some scavenging in some fossils, but by and large, very little. And some none. There's no, So
I think it's fascinating.
So in these fossils we find them on every single continent. And what does the Bible say? The flood was worldwide.
Yeah.
So
right.
Fossils are not happening today, and yet they happened in the past in spades. And you've got to have a catastrophe to do that. And the Bible tells us that there was a catastrophe that involved a lot of water, a lot of mud, Noah's Ark, Noah's flood. Hey, can I show you my stuff?
Please do. I was just going to say the best part of this is you brought a box of goodies. Come on.
So this is one of our many T-shirts for the Discovery Center, and can I hold it up to this camera?
Oh, you can, sure.
All right. And so you get to pick, do you want a T-shirt that says Discovery Center, or do you want a cool mug that says ICR Discovery Center?
Oh, wow.
T-shirt or mug. And by the way, I've used this T-shirt for a lumbar support on my drive in Colorado.
So I'll take the cup.
Exactly. And then I wanted you to.
Thank you for making that decision for me. I appreciate it.
And now this one, this is the Book of Beginnings by our current CEO, Dr. Henry Morris, and it's a commentary for, I guess, preachers.
Okay.
Because we have very little creation studies in seminaries, and so preachers go through seminary, and then their congregation asks them, "What about dinosaurs? What about millions of years?"
And they haven't been trained.
They have no answers.
Yeah,
and so then they
sure.
come to us, and so we say, "Well, start with this Book of
Yes.
Beginnings."
Yes.
So that's a commentary on Genesis, and then our founder, Dr. Henry Morris, that's his. Henry Morris III is the son of our founder, Henry Morris.
And does this come from Dr. Henry Morris's first book, large commentary on Genesis?
The Genesis record
Yes.
is the founder's commentary on Genesis,
Yes,
which we
I
still
have
have.
that.
We have
Yeah.
that available, and this is a different
Okay.
commentary.
Okay.
Yeah, Henry Morris Study Bible. So,
Yeah.
which one would you like, sir?
Well, I am really coveting in a very godly way the study Bible. So
Yeah,
thank you.
and that's
wow.
leather bound, and that's got our founder's
Oh, that's amazing.
study notes.
Thank you so much.
Those notes are also online at icr.org/Bible.
Okay, what can people do to help support what ICR is doing? Because it's incredible. It's one of a kind, really is.
We have actually our Discovery Center is run with volunteers. So we have volunteers who come and answer people's questions and make sure traffic flows, things like that. And then we have, of course, just getting equipped and subscribe to our magazines. That helps us because the more you gain from the more encouragement you gain from our efforts, the better equipped you become as a Christian, and the better equipped you become to equip other Christians and believers to know that the science really does support Scripture, and you can trust that Bible, all of it, 100%.
And you can trust ICR.org. Go there, pick up Acts and Facts, take a look at what Dr. Brian Thomas has written and the other scholars on the team. You will be glad you did. It is a one-of-a-kind ministry, site, place, organization, and now they have the Discovery Center, which I can't wait to see myself. Dr. Brian Thomas, good to see you, sir.
Thanks, appreciate it.
And good to see you again this week. We will see you next time on The Interview.